All right, guys, welcome back to the show and happy Easter. This episode will, like I said, be running on Easter Sunday. So, I will be probably just about to hit the road to meet up with some of the guys from the Gritty crew to do a bear hunt. So I may be en route when you listen to this. So definitely keep me in prayer with that project. But on this special Sunday, I wanted to release an episode with my guest this week, which is Jay Vallotton. So if you are into the church world at all, or if you've been to church, or if you're into worship music, you've probably heard of Bethel. It's a really large and pretty famous church out in Northern California, in Redding, California. And Chris Vallotton, which is Jay's father, is one of the lead pastors there, and written many books. And Jay is also a pastor at Bethel Church and the founder of a men's ministry called BraveCo. So, this is a really good episode for Easter Sunday. It's not specific to Easter, but Jay's a pastor, but also a really cool guy and a hunter as well. He's killed some huge bears and done a lot of cool hunts. So we talk about that as well. Just a warning though, we do also get into some kind of, not inappropriate stuff, but stuff that's a little heavy, and just really honest and real about manhood and being a man and being a godly man. So it may not be the best episode if you're listening with young children or, younger teenagers or whatnot. You just may want to be aware that we talk about some real issues that men deal with and struggle with. So it's a great episode. I think you guys will get a lot out of it. Please like the page, the YouTube page. Go over there and subscribe. Hit me up on Instagram and follow me on Instagram at The Hunter's Quest. Also, leave me a rating or review on Apple Podcasts. That's really helpful for getting the word out. But most importantly, just share this episode with friends and family. I think we got a lot of new listeners out there. I hope you guys are enjoying it. I appreciate y'all's support. And of course, I appreciate those who have been listening for a long time. So, keep tuning in. Again, I'm going to keep reminding you, but if you have not yet, go check out my first hunt film from Kodiak. You can find it on Brian Call's YouTube channel, as well as my YouTube channel by searching my name on YouTube, Hunter McWaters. It's a great film, and I hope you guys enjoy it. So, thank you for your support, excuse me. And let's just jump into this episode with Jay, and happy Easter, guys. I am here today with my guest. Super excited to talk to Jay Vallotton. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, and we were just talking before. You are in Redding, and I know you're on staff with Bethel. So just give folks a rundown real quick, just kind of who you are, what you're up to, what you do, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I've been on staff at Bethel Church since 2004. When I was
if you haven't heard of Bethel, probably 90% of the worship songs you sing in your church were written by Bethel.
Yeah. It's true, man. It's been an honor to be here and be on staff. And I worked in the school of ministry, which is our 9-month ministry school. Did that for 10 years and then moved over to the local church in 2013 and oversee all the pastoral care, the emotional health of the church was really what I was focused on. And so now I oversee our counseling center, our transformation center, and then our men's ministry, and run a nonprofit called BraveCo, which is also a men's ministry geared towards transforming men back into their God-given creation.
Yeah, there's been like a really strong attack as of late on manhood. Did BraveCo kind of come out of that, or is something that you started before that and have seen it go through that, or what's the story with that?
Yeah, so I was really blessed to grow up in a good, strong home.
I've read some of your dad's books.
Yeah, a lot of people, it's a rarity to grow up in a home with two parents, let alone two parents who love you and God. And from a young age, I remember sitting around the table. This was in the 80s. I was born 1980.
Okay.
And back in the 80s, we didn't have the internet.
Right.
And so, you didn't surf the internet or do any of that, text around the dinner table. My dad told stories. So I remember my dad was telling me about David and his mighty men.
Oh, cool.
When I was, I don't know, probably 10, 11 years old. And when he was done, I just remember like my heart burning when he was talking about David hiding and running for his life, hiding in the caves. And he had all these outcasts, these men who were thieves and who were murderers and who were they were nobody, but they wanted to be somebody.
Yeah.
They gathered around David and they got restored. And like one guy could kill 1,000 men and two guys could kill like 10,000 men. And I just remembered I telling my dad, like, I want to do that. And he thought I was saying like I wanted to kill 1,000 men, which that too. But I said, no, I want to help people get well. And so, that's why I went into ministry.
Nice.
I fought fire for a couple of years before I went in school ministry and then came on staff here after that. And so BraveCo came out of just a heart to see men get well. I've worked with sex addicts forever. I've done counseling since I was 20 years old. So I started really, really young. That was part of growing up. And my dad was like, man, you're great with people. You need to use that gift. You need to find out what people need and give them what you have. And so since I was a young boy, I started just talking with people, ministering to people. At youth group, I would do that. Just spend time. I'd find someone who's hurting and I'd spend time talking with them, helping them. And at about 2019, I really felt like, actually 2018, I felt like, man, I got to do something with men. I've always helped men. I've worked, like I said, in men's ministry, counseled tons and tons and tons of people. But so I decided to do a men's retreat. We did it in Texas at the Wildcatter Ranch.
Nice.
In Graham, Texas. And it was phenomenal. We had 78 guys there for the weekend. We broke a wild horse in an arena.
Oh, that's cool.
My friend does that. Yeah, it's incredible. And it was like one of the most phenomenal weekends I've been a part of. And so that kind of launched us. And then I was getting ready to do it again. So that was 2019. 2020, I was going to do it again. But COVID happened.
Oh, man. Yep.
Which pretty much shut down everything, of course. And so I was just like, man, I don't know. I'm sitting, I had a baby. My baby was born, my fourth child.
Oh, wow.
In March 6th, Edie was born.
Oh, my birthday's March 5th.
Okay, there you go. So I was just like, I can't remember when it was, probably April or May. COVID was just going nuts. And I was like, man, there's just so many dudes sitting at home right now. Got a job, just freaking suffering. So I posted on my Instagram, hey, if anyone wants to join me, I'm going to do 10 days straight talking about masculinity, manhood, how God created you. And we did that. It was awesome. I had 125 guys join me and we did 8 weeks on masculinity and manhood. And then I ran it back again. Had 250 guys join me that time.
Were you doing it like virtually or together?
Yeah, so we just set up a Zoom link.
Okay, cool.
Guys signed up. And basically I just said, hey, if you miss more than 2, you can't join again. I just set some simple parameters around it and guys showed up, man. And it was friggin' awesome. And then just built some structure around it. I was talking to a friend of mine and he's really great at the organizational side of building. So now he's my CEO for BraveCo.
Okay.
But what it turned into is we have a 12-month discipleship program for men. And it goes through 4 main topics. So we have our foundations for masculinity. So that's 12 weeks. Then we go into sexuality and relationships, and then finances, and then leadership.
Cool.
And so we have 48 weeks of teaching. Guys join in on actually built a platform that's like Zoom. So on our BraveCo.org platform, guys can join us live. We do a big watch party on Monday.
Nice.
So each man's in a small group, about seven guys per group, and then they have a guide that's over them that helps them. So it's been phenomenal, man. People are hurting so bad. Marriages are busted.
Yeah.
People's finances are trashed. The way they see themselves. It's really hard as a man right now. It's just really hard in general to live a healthy whole life. And so, I think this is our solution to guys really learning how to take care of themselves, how to work through pain, how to set healthy boundaries, learning what does it really mean to be a man? What's my role as a man in life? How do I love myself? I mean, just the basic stuff that you were supposed to get growing up in life that most men haven't gotten. And honestly, it's not their fault.
Yeah.
It's just where men are at. So, we started BraveCo, and it's been phenomenal.
That's awesome, man. Because there definitely is a lack of resources for men, I feel like, and I don't know. I feel like men in general have sort of been under attack, like more lately, but even for a long time. I mean, even like growing up, if you look at like the sitcoms, like you and I grew up watching, like the dad was always like the idiot guy that always screwed up everything, and like, stuff like that, just like subtle things. But and then you grow up and you're supposed to be responsible, provider, protector, but no one's told you anything about how to do that or like anything. So that's awesome, man. And it's funny you mentioned hearing about David and your mighty men from your dad, because that's one of my earliest memories of the Bible, is coming down early in the morning. My dad would be up, in his bathrobe or whatever, just sitting there and reading the Bible.
Yeah.
And he'd pull me up on his knee, and that was the first thing I remember, is him reading to me about David and Saul. And the one that stuck out in my mind was when David always would creep up into the cave and cut off a corner of his robe while he was taking a poop. I always love those stories, man.
Yeah, they're crazy. Our world, masculinity is definitely on attack. And I think our fathers did such a poor job, not specifically your dad or my dad.
Yeah.
But, we had the 60s movement, which you have Woodstock, people meeting from everywhere to do, free love, this free love movement. And coming out of that was society's answer to living in a very controlling environment, right? So the 40s and 50s, super controlling. And kids were just like, whatever, man, I'm not going to live controlled and in fear, just tons of religion. God's not going to love you if you don't do this. And all the rules and that religion puts on us. And so, the 60s is free love. And out of the 60s and 70s, out of, people wanting to experience freedom and love, you have a whole bunch of babies that are born out of wedlock. And then men not wanting to take responsibility. And so, on one hand, like, I don't super blame women or society for hating men on one hand, because you have what happens to a woman when she wants to feel cared for, she wants to feel valuable, right? Because a woman, the question that a woman's asking herself is, am I worthy to be pursued? That's the question that she's always asking herself. And of course, thanks to John Eldridge, the question that a man is always asking himself is, do I have what it takes? And so you have this culture, 60s and 70s, where each other are answering those questions, not through commitment and covenant and through health, but I mean, literally just hooking up and doing whatever, sleeping together with no consequences. Out of that, you have, again, babies being born, men not wanting to take responsibility because they don't actually feel like they have what it takes. They're afraid to do that. Plus, why take responsibility if you can have all the benefits of being in a relationship without all the responsibility? Who's not going to take that deal? So, we live in the most fatherless generation that's ever been alive in history that hasn't come from war.
Wow.
So you have heavy. It's so different, in World War and Vietnam, and sure, there was tons of dads that weren't at home, but it wasn't because dad didn't want you,
right,
or mom. It was because dad wanted to fight for you,
which is way different.
Now you have all these homes, these families that are struggling simply because you have a father that doesn't want to commit, doesn't want to grow up, wants to grow old, but doesn't want to grow up, wants all the benefits of being in a relationship without having to commit. And so, I think the world has reacted to our inability to show up in a relationship. And it's a tragedy. Right now, what we have going on in the world is a tragedy. The real pandemic is fatherlessness. And not to jump on a soapbox, but if you look at all the statistics that we're trying to solve as a church, what typical church would try to solve. So abortion, homelessness, suicide, incarceration, all of that is linked back to fatherlessness. All of it. It's insane.
Yeah.
90% of all men, 90% of all people in prison are men, for starters. But of those men, 90% of those men who are in prison grew up in a home without a dad.
Yeah, dang.
That's
wild. Crazy.
Yeah. And 49% of all children born today are born in a home without a dad.
Wow, 49%. That's
9%.
That's nuts. And then the ones of us that are, around and whatnot, I mean, we're under constant attack. Like, I feel like I've shielded myself from it to a large degree because I literally don't watch the news ever, like literally not at all. I try to filter as much as possible anything I intake. I have a program of spiritual fitness as well as physical fitness. But even that, like, it seeps in. So like, unless you're literally like living in the wilderness, like with no attachment to media whatsoever, you're going to feel some effects of these attacks. And it's going to make you on some level, hate to say it, but question yourself, am I good enough? Or, it's just, there's so much distraction and stuff out there. You have to be really intentional about getting away from it and feeding yourself with the good stuff. Cause I mean, you can't even watch a commercial these days, and I don't want to get on this topic, but you can't even watch literally a commercial without like two dudes kissing each other on a commercial.
Yeah. And again, I think you're looking at a few generations who have been so wounded by the passivity of men and being abandoned by fathers, and generations who are suffering from a instant gratification, self-gratification, culture. And we're not fixing it by going out and changing genders or sleeping around, or so it's just what happens. And I'll tell you, I really do think that men are to blame for a lot of it. So let me just start here. Like, the responsibility was, in my opinion, was placed on a man to lead. Not that a woman can't lead, but the responsibility to protect, promote, provide, that was placed on men in society and in the home from God. And I think when dad doesn't show up in a home, when dad doesn't give you identity, when dad doesn't promote you, when dad doesn't protect you, when dad doesn't provide for you, I mean, you grow up resenting the thing that was supposed to care for you.
Right.
And I tell people this all the time, whether it's men that I'm speaking to or our school of ministry, which would be students from 18 to 80 years old, is where people are at today. Their struggle with addiction, their struggle with, it doesn't really matter. Alcohol, it's probably not your fault. It's probably not your fault. Just follow me here. Because if you grew up in a home, the average home today, if you grew up in a home without a dad, or let's say you have a dad, well, how good is your connection to your dad? Do you feel cared for? Do you feel known? Do you feel valued, pursued, understood, championed? Probably not. Most people today probably don't. The average person doesn't. So they say that you become what you think the most important person in your life thinks of you.
Yeah. But is that also, are people replacing the Heavenly Father with their earthly father in that situation? I mean, shouldn't a lot of that be coming from God?
Here's the thing. Who was supposed to teach you how Father God sees you?
True. Yeah.
You're supposed to grow up in a home, right, where mom and dad, they adore you. They look at you, they hold you before you can even give them anything. Right. You're putting your pants, you're spitting up, you're screaming, and they are saying, constantly, they're saying, you are valuable. I love you. I'll stop my world and make you, I will learn your needs. I will nurture and cherish you, right? And when you grow up in a home where you didn't get that, you don't bond to mom and dad. Or let's say that you bond through unhealthy attachments. You bond in the chaos. Well, that is, you grow up in a world of pain, and you have to medicate pain. Mm-hmm. One way or another. Well, who taught you how to medicate pain? Your parents do, if they're there, and they can teach you a healthy process for dealing with pain. But if your parents weren't present in your pain, then you're medicating. You learn coping mechanisms to medicate. And most people are learning how to medicate. By the time of 11 years old, kids have already been exposed to porn, and even earlier than that. So you get hooked at porn when you're really young. Well, who do you have to talk to about your porn issue?
Yeah, you feel like you can't talk to your parents because it's like you're going to get in trouble.
In trouble. So that 11-year-old or that 8-year-old or that 9-year-old boy is living in a grown-up world full of pain.
Yeah.
It's just chaotic. And then he's at 18, he's expected to be a man. No one's ever taught him anything except for school. Well, school's not teaching you how to communicate. It's not teaching you what your core emotions are, how to express them, how to even set a healthy boundary. You don't even learn boundaries in school.
Yeah.
So, I don't think where people, if you're listening to this podcast today and you are struggling with an addiction, you're struggling with alcoholism, you're struggling with porn or masturbation, or let's just say you don't love your perception of you. You wake up in the morning and you don't love you. Probably not your fault, but it is your responsibility. It's your responsibility. And here's why I say it's your responsibility. Again, I've done thousands and thousands of counseling appointments, thousands of them since I was 20 years old. Where people are at typically is not their fault. It didn't start with them. But if you don't take responsibility, see, the worst thing that you can be in this life is a victim. Mm-hmm. Because a victim doesn't have control over what happens to them or where they're going to go or what they're going to be. And the biggest thing that's happening to our world today are people aren't wanting to take responsibility, and they want to stay the victim because they don't want it to be their fault. Mm-hmm. And that's leaving you and them stuck in a place where, you have to find somebody to blame. If you're a victim, you got to find somebody to blame. And then you need someone to take care of you forever. So I think that where we're at today as men is we've got to decide that we're going to be responsible for our lives. Yeah. And move forward like you did in your life, going from being an addict or going from obesity, there's roots behind all that stuff, but you decided to take control of your life and take some steps and move forward.
Yeah. And, with stuff, ministries like you're running, and um, some guys never get there. They die in everything they're dealing with. Some guys like me eventually, with God's help, figure it out and do something about it. But I mean, like in my case, it took years and years and years of pain, and then it took really years to dig myself out of these holes I had dug for myself. And there could be easier ways out for guys, that have a little help, and hopefully that's kind of where you come in. So,
that is I think teaching guys how to really care for themselves, being a guide in their life. Yeah, I mean, you don't have all the pain and drama and suffering, but yeah, I think men need to stop and take a look at their life and ask themselves, what was your childhood like?
Yeah.
Who gave you the right to be a man? Who taught you how to be a man? And start to piece together, like, why do you believe what you believe? And do you know how to work through pain? Do you know how to set boundaries? Do you have confidence that you're lovable? Yeah. So to answer your earlier question, yeah, your parents were supposed to nurture you up, right? And you feel lovable. And then that was supposed to directly transfer over into your relationship with God. So my dad, my earthly father, thinks that I'm awesome. My heavenly father thinks I'm awesome. It's just supposed to be this really easy transition.
Right.
Well, if you grew up in a home where your earthly dad was an asshole, then the way that you see heavenly father is probably really painful. Yeah. Really, and so that becomes a problem.
Yeah, and just like that porn thing you mentioned earlier. I mean, I know it's like you said, most kids get exposed by the time they're 11. That's probably about the time one of my buddies showed me a naked picture online or something, and then you grow up and like you don't realize the damage you're doing to yourself at all. And then society like tells you it's normal for guys to watch porn. Like I literally believed that, like, oh, I watch porn, I'm a guy. Yeah. Even as a Christian guy. And then I like realized one day, like, that is not normal. That's bad. Like, and I'd already done so much damage to myself. And luckily, I feel like God has delivered me from that. It's still something that you have to be vigilant about, but, it's crazy how these insidious things can just sneak in as you're a child, and then you can do tons of damage to yourself. And I believe that was part of my road into addiction to other things, and that's still something that I think is being healed in me as well. But I do want to, this is all good stuff, I do want to kind of like segue a little bit into how hunting in the outdoors kind of relates to all this stuff, because I know you're a big outdoorsman. So when was the first time you were exposed to hunting or the outdoors as a child?
Yeah, so I grew up in Weaverville, California, Northern California, a small town of about 3,000, and we had basically a house out in the woods. And so, at a really young age, my dad doesn't hunt, but hunting's kind of in my family. It just skipped my dad. So I would chase birds. I'd shoot birds 8 hours a day if I could. Yeah. Wear out BB guns and shoot them with wrist rockets and bow and arrow and all of that stuff.
That's cool, man. Yeah, like I didn't know. So I guess we have like a mutual friend, a guy that I just kind of ran to on Instagram, and so I kind of have been in ministry. I'm just transitioning out, but I've been working in full-time ministry for a few years now, and I worked for Christian Broadcasting Network for 7 years, and so obviously I know of Bethel. I know of, like I said, I've read some of your dad's books, and then so I get to this guy on Instagram, Trey, and like I had no idea that like all the pastors at Bethel were like big time hunters. I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's so cool. Yeah, most of us grew up in the mountains, and that's what you did for fun. We hunted and fished and hiked and all that stuff.
Yeah, I just thought like you guys are a bunch of California guys and just ate nuts and seeds and didn't do anything cool.
Thank God. And that stuff's all right, but yeah, I mean, I think so much joy and just value in my life comes from the pursuit
Yeah.
uh, of animals and adventure and exploring. I love it, man.
Didn't you kill? I heard you killed like some kind of giant bear.
Yeah. So 2018, my friend Pat Donaldson invited me up to Alaska. He's a guide up there, and we did a grizzly bear / moose hunt.
Okay.
And on the what was it, second day of the hunt, I shot a massive grizzly bear with my bow.
Nice.
Yeah.
That was awesome, dude. What kind of bow you shoot?
I shoot a prime.
Okay. A lot of guys are shooting prime these days.
Yeah. Well, man, it's just super forgiving. I think it's probably a 6 or 7 year old bow.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've tried a bunch of different bows, and I haven't found anything better. Yeah, I mean technology's advancing, but not that much. So
Yeah.
yeah, my bow shoots great. I actually shot a moose on that same hunt. Shot that.
Oh wow.
Yeah, the grizzly bear went number 36 for all time for grizzlies, and then
Good. That's awesome.
yeah, it was crazy. And then my moose was pretty big. It wasn't massive, but I think it
I
was.
mean, for non-residents, any moose that's legal is pretty big.
Yeah, I think it was a 68 or something.
Oh wow, dang.
Yeah,
Alaska's amazing, isn't it?
yeah, it's incredible, man.
Yeah. If you guys are listening, you haven't been, just go. So how do why do you think God put it in our hearts, like as men, to be hunters?
Yeah, well, I mean,
Or how is hunting important, like for a man?
I think for starters, could you imagine a world where men didn't want to hunt? We wouldn't be here today.
Yeah. Straight up.
Yeah, so I think just in terms of survival, man's ability to pursue.
Yeah. But I guess for like the modern man, I guess I would rephrase it.
Yeah, no, it's great. I'm also saying part of what keeps me hunting is this tie back to my ancestors. I mean, for reals, I don't know that there's any place that I feel closer to my ancestors than when I'm out doing what they did in order to survive. So I just think that it's like, well, why does a bloodhound want to bay a cat? I mean, it was just bred for that. It was born in for us. Like, I feel like that. So, but there's so much that comes out of the adventure of the pursuit and so much confidence. I think that when God put in us this drive to go beyond what we think is possible, get out of our comfort zone, experience what he created. Yeah, and hunting does that.
Yeah.
Exploring does that. Pushing the limits is so important. I think that what I realized in firefighting, I fought fire for a couple of years, wildland firefighting, and I realized there's such a benefit to finding the edge of your capacity, of
absolutely
working to failure. And what I realized in firefighting is that before you worked a 30-hour shift of hiking hills, running chainsaws, you didn't think you could work a 30-hour shift. And you were always afraid of what would happen if you overdid it, always. And there were a lot of other crews that would try to save themselves for the big day when something happened, and they wouldn't, for instance, they wouldn't do PT on a day that they might get called out because they'd be tired. And we did the opposite. We do PT every day, regardless of where you're at. And what you realize is that, you have way more capacity than you think you have, and it just gave you confidence. And I feel like the same thing, hunting builds competence, and competence builds confidence. And a confident man, he's a man that's going somewhere, and he's effective. And so, I don't feel like every man has to hunt, but I do think it's a great avenue to build competency and confidence, and to really reach into a place of pulling yourself up by the bootstraps and getting it done.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, man. And I heard you talking on another podcast about, you were talking more metaphorically in terms of the mountains of life, whether it be fatherhood or marriage or whatnot. And you're talking about how those things require preparation. And I was just thinking how similar that is to the natural world when, you book a 7-10 day hunt in the mountains, maybe it's archery elk or something. And, like, I better be like, with the first time I booked that trip to Alaska and I realized what I got myself into, I was like, I need to start training hard, and like, I need to prepare for this or it's going to be awful. So like, how do you, and I also heard you talking about, people like to throw around these very flowery, phrases and Christianese about like I think you're talking about like nailed to the cross, and what does that actually mean? So like, on a really practical level, I'd love to hear about how you stay fit physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I've been on a freaking huge journey, probably like every guy in that.
Yeah. And feel free to go into some of that journey if you'd like to kind of give us a little back on that.
Yeah, it's cool. I do. I think that in this life, if you're listening to this podcast, your story is full of ups and downs. If I go through my timeline, just very, very quickly at 10 years old, I found masturbation and got addicted to masturbation. At 14, I found porn. So then I was addicted to porn and masturbation. Got engaged at 17 to my high school sweetheart, married at 18, had my first child by 19, had 3 kids by 24, plus a vasectomy.
Wow.
Yeah. And then 27, went through a divorce. My wife left me. So I was a single dad at 27, had the kids at the time. And it's just insanely hard. And met my now wife at 29, went through a nervous breakdown at 30, lost the use of my arms completely.
Whoa.
Almost completely, about 90% of use of my arms for a whole year. So then I had to get on Lexapro and clonazepam.
Your arms didn't work for almost a year?
I couldn't make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
How did people have to like feed you and stuff?
I could do that, but it was all I could do to do that.
Wow. Dang, man.
Yeah, it was insane. Basically I overdid it. I just overdid. I could go into all of it, but it would take a while. I overdid it and ended up my body just shutting down and saying, screw you. If you're not going to listen to me, we're done. So yeah, tons of anxiety day in and day out, demons showing up in my room. In the flesh, I could see them, having 3 wet dreams a night. Just crazy torment. And I know some guys will be like embarrassed that I'm talking about stuff like that, but this is real stuff that people go through. It's just life.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you one thing real quick. So those demonic attacks and stuff, like, do you think that the enemy saw that you were in a vulnerable time and like stepped up the attacks? Or do you think it was like all this was attacks or some combination, or what do you think? Or like, did it make it worse or what?
Yeah. I don't think that you can detach the physical from the spiritual.
Sure.
So I feel like I overdid it. I literally overdid it, and I could go through and tell everyone what I did to overdo it, but I overdid it. I overloaded my life, and I got really, really emotionally exhausted, like so emotionally exhausted, which led into lots of anxiety. So then I had tons of anxiety, and I feel like the fear and the anxiety all day opened up that door for then the enemy to come in. And
so he was kind of exploiting a weakness and like stepping up the attacks almost.
Like, I don't even know that he was stepping up anything. I just feel like it opened up a door. Like,
okay,
the door opened in your house and you find a cat inside and you're like, well, how'd that get in there? Well, I left the door open. I just had so much anxiety. I couldn't get out from under the anxiety all day. And a lot of people will understand what I'm talking about, because a lot of people go through nervous breakdowns and or have dealt with huge bouts of anxiety. So
yeah.
That's what happened. I got so low. I tried to fight it off for about a year without taking any medication. Finally, my sister was like, well, "You're doing more harm to yourself than you are good. You need to get on some medication." So I got on clonazepam, which is super addictive, and then Lexapro. I never abused either of them, but you become medically dependent upon those. So,
Sure.
moving on in my timeline, yeah, I mean, it's just I went through a 7-year journey of trying to have kids, got pregnant, to have more kids with my now wife, got pregnant 5 years into that, had a miscarriage,
Hmm.
week 10, and finally got off the medication when my daughter was born in 2020. And but life's tough. That's what I was doing my timeline for. Life
Sure.
is. I don't care if you started out in an easy home, like I started out in a good home. Life is freaking tough, and unless you are prepared to be responsible for your life, to take responsibility and to prepare and to move forward and to look at challenges or these crappy places that you get to in life as a challenge. James 1 says, "Consider it pure joy or hilarious laughter when you fall into unexpected trials, for the testing of your faith produces perseverance. And when perseverance runs its course, you will lack nothing." And the one thing well, two things you're guaranteed of in this life is that you're going to have troubles,
Mm-hmm.
and that you're going to die at some point. What you do with those troubles will decide where you're going to end up in life. And James says, if you consider it joy, if you can stay in a place of joy, you'll have the energy to stay in the trial. And if you stay in the trial, you'll have the ability to expand
Mm-hmm.
your capacity, your perseverance.
Yeah.
And so, as a human, as a man, I want to get to a place where I'm confident, it doesn't matter what storm I'm in, that I'm going to thrive. That was the confidence that every human was supposed to get when they were born, from good parenting and then through a relationship with God. There's nothing that is too big for you. There's nothing that's too big for your family. There's nothing too big for God. And so I really feel like the outdoors, again, it's just another level. It's another aspect of building confidence. Well, what's that confidence do? That confidence helps you to stick in there when your marriage is tough.
Yeah.
It helps you to show up every day and be present with your kids. It helps you to share your fears, what you're afraid of. It helps you to press in when you don't feel like it. And so, yeah, I mean, I feel like my routine now, my normal routine is I work out. I wake up 5:40 in the morning, go work out at my friend's house 4 days a week. It's nothing crazy. We do an hour. It's good. Read my Bible at night. I went years and years without reading my Bible, and I feel like a lot of people get caught up on the religion of any of it, working out, the religion of reading your Bible, the religion. Yeah. And I feel like I just got so burned out on that as a kid.
It's easy to just be like, oh, check that box,
Yeah. I'd read my Bible.
It's a weird balance though too, because it's like there's part of it's like where you don't want to just have like that religious box checking thing, but at the same time, like there's something to be said about like discipline as well. So it's kind of a fine line there, you know?
Yeah. So for me, it came out of I could preach both sides of the coin, and if you're going to err on one side, definitely err on the side of doing it.
Yeah.
I think we all have to go through this phase in life where you believe in it, so you do it.
Yeah.
You believe in it, so you do it. So that when you don't feel like doing it, you still do it because you believe in it.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it wasn't like I've never believed in God or believed in reading the Bible. I just got to a place where I was so burned out on doing it because it's the right thing to do.
Right.
So I went through that phase, whatever. But now, I want to learn. So I read to learn. I read to grow. I read to understand. I read to connect with God.
Mm-hmm.
I read to get direction. I read to hear His voice. So I just rediscovered the why behind doing it. Because if you just do it forever just to do it, it's just the lowest level of doing it. It's so unmotivating.
For sure.
And then emotionally,
you mix in any like breath work, meditation, listening prayer, any of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, not a ton.
Yeah.
And I would say I probably do more than the average. The way that we have embraced the Christian lifestyle is probably more than. I mean, I grew up in a home where my parents were, I don't know, at 11 years old, I was learning how to cast out demons.
Yeah.
Somebody may be like, this guy's crazy. I was learning how to prophesy at 12 years old, hear God's voice, prophesy. And
see, I grew up like in a Baptist home, and I like discovered all this stuff later, and it's like, it was like, whoa,
Yeah. And so I've just lived that lifestyle. I've lived that lifestyle for, 30 years. I've just been in it. 40, my whole entire life, I've been in, practice. What's God saying to you? Just living that lifestyle. And so I think what most people have to, spend the later part of their life learning, like, okay, I'm going to do meditative prayer, which, by the way, I'm not an expert in that. And I think there's massive benefit in that.
Yeah.
I think my normal everyday lifestyle, I do a lot of that stuff just in everyday life. What's God saying to me?
Sure.
Yeah. So
it's just more incorporated kind of in your daily walk as opposed to like, I'm doing this now.
Yeah. 5 minutes there, which again, I think probably different points in my life. I'll definitely pick up the practice. I've got some to do that. My friend Chris Cruz wrote a book called The Practice of Being with Jesus. It's phenomenal. It's a phenomenal journey through, learning to hear the voice of God. It's incredible. And so I've done some of that stuff, and it's been really, really beneficial in my life, but I'm not doing that.
Where I came from was like, all there was like that religious kind of read your Bible thing, And so when I like discovered later in life, like what real prayer was, and that prayer isn't always just talking only, like that was kind of a rediscovery for me. But I can see how it's different when that's kind of something that's been a part of your faith since a child.
Yeah, and those other areas I probably need to grow in.
It's just different. It's cool.
Just don't currently do that. And then I think the emotional side. I spend so much time teaching emotional health and living it. I mean, we really do. We practice what we preach, and what we preach comes out of what we've done personally for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And, part of how I got through my nervous breakdown was the body, soul, spirit work, and just did so much work in, exercising daily, being in the Word, praying, hearing God's voice, living from a place of hearing God's voice. And then what are my needs, physically, emotionally, mentally. So my wife and I spend lots of time talking about how we're doing, planning out our life, living off of a calendar and a schedule, making sure that I'm throwing fun in there as well. And one of the first things that guys throw out of their life when they get busy, it's just the dumbest thing that you can do, because really the only way you recharge in life is through probably having fun.
Yeah.
Life is so full of these big decisions and ups and downs that, man, if you're not out chasing quail or hunting turkeys, or I don't know, just doing stuff that you like to do for fun, throwing a football, you're probably going to burn out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I remember hearing you say that one time about the best way to emotionally recharge is have fun.
It is.
And like you said, that's something that society might say, like, oh, you should be, I don't know, working or whatever. Sometimes you just got to like, no, I need to do this.
Yeah. A good question for men to ask themselves is, is your inflow matching your outflow? Just like finances, I mean, when you're doing your finances, that if you spend more than you bring in, you're in trouble. It's only a matter of time.
Yep.
And it's so easy to feel really important, super, super important, because you're pushing X level. You're a 6-figure businessman or a 7-figure business. And it's like, that's cool, as long as you're a 7-figure investor in your own self.
Yeah.
In your marriage and in your relationships with your kids and man, we just hide behind the one area that we're successful in and hardly ever push into the areas that need growth, and they're just so small. And so after my nervous breakdown, man, I learned a big freaking lesson that if you're not taking care of your body, your soul, and your spirit, it's only a matter of time before you have to.
Yeah.
And so I'm now. It's just my lifestyle. I just do that. I don't have relationships where I'm not honest and open. I don't have relationships where we don't have healthy boundaries. I don't have relationships where that aren't life-giving. I just don't. And but it's a challenge, it's a challenge.
Sure. Yeah. And that's so good, man. Like I've said before, like we are triune beings, just like you said. Like I think probably one of the greatest examples of people are like, what, I don't get the Trinity. What's the Trinity? Like you are a little miniature Trinity. You're a mind, a body, and a spirit. You got to take care of all three. And if they're not in balance, like you said, eventually the ship's going to crash. And, I love, you said earlier about like the mind body connection, and in Western society, we've like ripped them apart, but really they're not, they're one, kind of going back to what I just said, and how, spiritual laws almost always have a physical mirror, like, challenging yourself in the weight room and your muscles get sore and they grow. It's the same as like with spiritual growth, or that like inflow outflow thing you're talking about. So there's one that I've been kind of wrestling with in my own personal life, that I've seen spiritually, but I'm just kind of trying to figure it out, because I feel like there's a physical mirroring of it as well. But anyway, what I'm trying to get at is you go through these times, or I go through these times, maybe it's 3 months, 6 months, could be a year even, of like, it just seems like insane, like spiritual, like just like you're so connected with God and like things are just like falling into place and clicking and you're just like, this is amazing. Like your times with God are like so good. And then there's times where like, you're not, like maybe your times with God just don't feel like they're hitting, or, you just don't feel like that closeness and that connection. And to me, it's almost like with muscular growth, like you have to have like a rest period. You can't just be constantly building muscle all the time. But then there are other people that say like, well, if, you're supposed to go from glory to glory, and, the righteous, whatever, the sun shines until noonday, or whatever that proverb is, like you're supposed to be growing all the time. But like, I see physically that that's not really the reality. So I'm wondering, like, and some people would even say like, oh, if you're not growing, you're backslid. And I'm like, okay, am I backslid? Or is, I'm falling back on my discipline to spend time with God, maybe even though I'm not feeling it, and that's good. Am I just in like a spiritual rest phase? I don't know. What do you think about that?
Backslid guys are the guys that hate the relationship with God. They just hate it, but they're too afraid to say it because they're just so concerned. Are you,
You're saying the guys that would call that a backslidden time are guys that are like that?
They freaking hate the relationship with God because it's out of fear. It's a fear-based relationship. And they're always trying to measure, am I backslid? Am I not backslid? And performing for his love and performing. They learn that as a kid. They learn to perform. So I would say it's not their fault. It's a responsibility. They learn that they have to do all these things in order for God to be close to them. They got to do all these things in order for God to want to be around them. And man, if you have kids, would you ever make your kids do all these things in order for you to want to be close to them? Sorry, it just doesn't work like that. Yeah. So, we go through different seasons in life. We go through different seasons. God's first language is not English. And a lot of how we learn to expand and to grow is we go through different things. And sometimes we feel really close to him. But feeling, I think we have to put less weight on our feelings and less importance on what we feel. And
that's good.
That's why people end up it's one of the reasons why people end up with this stupid theories about love. We fell out of love. Like, no, you just chose to not pursue somebody anymore. And so, we think feeling something is the hierarchy of living, and it's just not. So I would say for you, like, don't worry about what you feel. If you feel, it's great. When I roll over and I see my wife in the morning, I don't care what I feel. Let me start over. I care what I feel. It's not the most important thing. Because if you wake up next to a woman every single day, you're not going to feel madly in love with her every day.
Right.
It just doesn't really matter that much.
Yeah. That's a huge lie that society has tricked people, and like, you have to feel like you're in love. No, love's a decision and a commitment, and like,
so you're not going to feel that same way with God every time. And we have these mountaintop experiences with our wives. Your honeymoon was a mountaintop experience. You get away without the kids for a few days, and you can create that mountaintop experience. That's great. Well, that's not real life. It's vital for life. It's vital, but it's not necessarily real life. It's just a part, an aspect of life. So, in your relationship with God, enjoy the searching and the seeking and the finding him while he can be found, and the different times when you're growing, and, change up the language. So, if you're not feeling him, you try something else, do something else. It's like, do contemplative prayer. That's awesome. And when that's like running its course and you're like, man, it's not having the same impact. Okay. Do some deep studies, okay, God, what are you saying for me in this season? What is this season? Like probably a couple of months ago, I really felt like he was telling me, you need to read Nehemiah. And I was like, awesome. So I'm reading Nehemiah, and I'm reading it, and I'm going, okay, how's the walls in my life? What is I'm connecting with God through the word. And so I think, like, the biggest lie is that you should feel something all the time. And man, you should feel like you should wake up in the morning and feel $1 million. No, you shouldn't.
Yeah.
I don't know who's doing that, what drug you're taking, but passion. So I'll say this, and I know we probably got to end soon, but passion, that feeling of like, wow, what most people call love is actually passion. And passion to me comes from the exploration of something with the belief that there is no end to it. And so, it's when we're out in the woods and you feel so much, you're passionate. The love is that commitment. It's that I'm going to do this, whether I feel passionate or not, I am going to stay in the game. And that's the foundation. That's the bedrock. So, if you're in a place in your life where you're not passionate, you're not feeling that passion for God and where you're at, that's okay. Just stay steady and mix it up a little bit. Mix it up around some other people who are, they're experiencing mountaintop, and they'll pull you up into that mountaintop experience, or, do some worship, or do some, grow that exploring, get out of this. And I think this is why religious people get so stuck. Get out of this box and explore. out of the box and explore and allow God to speak to you in different ways.
That's good, man. Yeah, thanks. I do have one more question that just came up while we were talking that I wanted to ask you about. So, and you don't have to go like super in detail, but maybe some practical tips. Like, okay, let's say a guy, like for example, myself, early part of my marriage, I messed up big time. I was in addiction. I got worse into addiction. I was lying all the time. I was not unfaithful to my wife, thank God, but I was lying constantly and using drugs. And so I lost a lot of trust with like she stopped trusting me. And I've gotten a lot back, of course, but still there's like, she's got a very strong personality. She's dealt with some stuff with her own dad that I don't need to get into, but I'm still in a lot of ways feeling like there's work to be done to be able to take that leadership role, that head of the household role. Like she's not quite willing to like really let me have it. And I've been clean for like 5 years. And that's kind of her personality on some level too. But I don't know, maybe for other guys that are in a situation where, okay, they've taken responsibility, they are doing the right stuff now, but their wives are just not ready to let them really kind of be the leader they should be. Any tips for guys like that to kind of build that back?
Yeah. So, a couple things with trust. Trust is not built through the absence of mistakes, but by how we clean up a mess. And so that's one side of it. Trust is also given, it's not necessarily earned. You choose to trust taxi cab drivers all the time. And then I would say the last thing is trust is also built through repeated success. And, you did that when you were dating her. You said, I'm going to do this. And then you do it. And she trusts you a little bit. And you say, I'm going to do this. And day after day after, that's what dating is. You're dating to build some sense of trust. So, there's kind of 3 different ways that I look at building trust in a marriage and just in life. But I also think that when our role as a man, God said to husbands, love your wife as Christ loved the church. And I have women ask me all the time, like, do you believe that a woman should submit to a man? Here we go. Now, if there's a woman
it's loaded.
Yeah, she's just like, oh no. How hard is it?
I actually read 1 Peter 3 in an intro to a podcast I just did. I'm sure I'm going to get some people like, what?
How hard is it to submit to a man who's laying down his life for you? Not super hard.
Yeah.
When his whole goal is to make you better. So is to bring you up. So the other thing is the Bible says for a man to cherish and nurture his wife. Husbands, cherish and nurture your wife. So that cherish and nurture is talking about the same way that a woman would nurture a child. You learn every aspect of it. Before our baby girl Edie could even talk, my wife knew what our baby needed. Mm-hmm. Imagine understanding your wife, spending so much time understanding her, creating a safe place for her, learning what she's good at, learning how to communicate to her, really learning from that place. That's the place that you're supposed to lead from.
Yeah, which takes work.
Well, guys are trying to come in and lead from a place of their successes.
Yeah.
Their dominance. And we're supposed to lead in the sense that it's not that a woman can't. Can a woman not defend the home if she had to? No, she could. She could absolutely defend the home. Just a man is better suited for it because of our makeup, the testosterone, the amount of testosterone, which gives us a little bit more edge and aggression, which was only supposed to be there to help us pursue and to help us protect and help to provide. And so I think men have it because they feel really insecure. A lot of men, they lead from a place of proving they can do it instead of from a place of knowing that they can do it, and they're doing it out of a place of security, not to gain security. And therefore, it's all turned around backwards. They want the woman to validate them as a man instead of respect them as a man. And when that happens, you're trying to perform for your wife. I'm not trying to make it super complicated. I'm actually trying to make it so much easier in saying that our role as a man isn't to walk in the house and go, I'm home, what's for dinner? I'm the leader. Here's all the decisions that we're going to make. Your wife may be better at making financial decisions than you.
Yeah.
She may be better at knowing what the kids need than you. You're just the one that's responsible for making sure that happens. You're the one that's responsible. She may make more money than you. You're just the one that's responsible to make sure that you guys are financially sound. Now, whether she brings in more money than you doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
You're the one that was supposed to initiate.
Gotcha.
So I think that the struggle really lies in most women don't feel known. They don't feel seen. They don't feel understood. Therefore, they don't feel safe. And if they don't feel safe, no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And I think a whole bunch of men are trying to lead their family from a place of doing instead of from a place of knowing.
Yeah, that's good, man. That's really good.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Any cool adventures planned for 2022?
Yeah, so I'm headed out with a couple of friends. We're going to go to Texas.
Nice.
There's some land that we get to hunt that's they have to kill a certain amount of does and a certain amount of bucks. So the guys say all the does you can, which trust me, we won't kill all of them, and all the coal bucks that you can. And they've already killed 430 pigs, and they said kill all you can. So we're hunting just the section we're hunting 6,500 acres. So
nice.
It'd be 6 of us or something.
When, in January?
Yeah.
Anything coming up for 2022, like elk tags or bear, anything cool like that?
Yeah, so I think I'm gonna go back up to Alaska with my friend. We're gonna try and do caribou/moose hunt. He's just built a new plane.
Okay. I'm trying to get up there for caribou this year as well.
Yeah, so we'll go do that, and then Nebraska might be on the books. Wyoming. My good friend Rob Wiley owns Non-Typical Outfitters.
Okay.
And so we'll probably go chase elk. I didn't draw it this year, but I should draw it next year up there. And then we do a long-range shooting school up there in Wyoming.
Oh, nice.
So that should be pretty awesome.
Cool, man.
There's more adventures on the books than I actually get to do. I get them all lined up, and then I start taking them off, and so we're gonna have another baby in March.
Nice. Congrats.
So that kind of puts a damper on how much I can do.
Yeah.
So gotta just do the epic ones.
Yeah, cool, man. Well, it sounds like a good year, and there's always going to be, Lord willing, time for more adventures. But yeah, man, I really appreciate your time. I appreciate your vulnerability, and being open and being, out there, willing to put yourself out there to help guys, because a lot of guys really need it, man.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Where can people find your stuff, or get in touch with BraveCo or whatnot?
Yeah, so you can follow us at braveco.men on Instagram, and you can find me at J Vallotton on Instagram as well. They can go to braveco.org and just check us out.
Cool.
So I'm open up registration again in February. So
cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again, brother. Hopefully sometime we can get a chance to meet up in person. Maybe go hunt together or something.
Yeah, I love it.
Cool, man. Thanks again.
Thank you, man.